In 1980, Mount St. Helens buried a whole logging fleet alive. Bulldozers, yarders, Kenworth trucks. 100 feet of ash dropped over all of it in a single morning, and most of it is still down there today. We told you that story, but we left out the part that actually matters. Because when the mountain came apart, it did something nobody expected. It took the biggest lake on the mountain, shoved it sideways, and dammed it behind a wall of shattered rock and dead trees. That lake started to rise, and if it ever broke through that wall, it would send a flood down the Toutle Valley that government engineers called, in writing, the worst in the history of the United States. So the Army Corps did the only thing they could. They drilled a tunnel through a mountain to drain a lake that a volcano created. It is 8,000 feet long. It has been failing slowly for 40 years, and in 2026, it is the single most important machine in Washington state that almost nobody knows exists. This is the one they had to build after the fleet went under. Start with what you can still see today, because it tells you how much force we are talking about. Drive the back roads near the South Coldwater Trail, and the ground is handing things back. A Forest Service archaeologist named Matt Maherter has spent years documenting it. A 90-foot logging yarder, twisted into something that looks like a modern sculpture. A Kenworth truck nosing out of a hillside. Old machines, parked and empty on a quiet Sunday morning. That a mountain swallowed and the rain is slowly uncovering. Because the whole area is inside a national monument now, nobody is allowed to haul any of it out. By law, it stays where the volcano left it. Now hold that picture in your head. 100 feet of ash. Machines the size of houses, tossed and buried. That is what the north side of this mountain did to everything in its path. And the lake was in its path, too. Before that morning, Spirit Lake was a postcard. Summer camps, a lodge, boats, clear water sitting at the foot of a symmetrical peak. Then at 32 minutes past 8 on May 18th, the entire north face of the mountain broke loose. It was the largest landslide ever recorded on Earth. 2.5 cubic kilometers of rock and ice sliding at over 100 miles an hour. Part of that avalanche slammed straight into Spirit Lake. It shoved the water out of its own basin and threw it as a wave more than 800 feet up the far ridge, stripping the hillside bare. When the water fell back, the lake was a different thing entirely. Its bottom had been raised by about 200 feet. Its surface had nearly doubled. And where the water used to drain out toward the Toutle River, there was now a plug of avalanche debris, 600 feet deep, sitting across the outlet. The lake had no way out. And here is the problem that kept government engineers awake at night. Rain and snowmelt kept pouring into that lake. Every year the water climbed higher against a natural dam made of loose rock and shattered trees. Nobody built that dam. Nobody engineered it. It was just whatever the mountain had dumped there. And behind it, the water kept rising. In 1982, the United States Geological Survey put the fear into a single sentence. If that debris blockage failed and the lake broke through, it would trigger a flood and mud flow. In their words, unprecedented in the history of the United States. The wall of water and sediment would race down the Toutle, into the Cowlitz, and toward the towns of Castle Rock, Kelso, and Longview. Engineers modeling the worst-case pictured floodwater reaching the second floor of a hotel in downtown Longview. Nearly 50,000 people live in the path of that lake. So this stopped being a cleanup job. It became a race against water. If you want to see how a handful of engineers tried to outrun a rising lake, hit the like button and subscribe, because this next part is where it gets genuinely dangerous. The first fix was fast and ugly. In late 1982, The Army Corps put pumps on barges and floated them out onto Spirit Lake. Diesel engines running around the clock, pushing lake water up and over the debris dam through pipes. It worked, barely. It bought time. But everyone knew you cannot run barge pumps forever to hold back a permanent threat. Pumps break, fuel runs out, winters shut you down. They needed something permanent, something that did not depend on a motor running every single day. So they chose the hardest option on the table. They would drill a tunnel clean through Harry's Ridge, the wall of rock on the west side of the lake, and let gravity do the work forever. Water would flow into an intake, drop down a shaft, run through the mountain, and come out the far side into a creek that fed the Toutle. No pumps, no fuel, just gravity, running 24 hours a day for as long as the rock held. On paper, it was elegant. In the rock, it was a fight. The tunnel would run 8,465 feet. That is more than a mile and a half, bored 11 feet wide through the guts of a ridge that a volcano had just tried to destroy. They brought in a tunnel boring machine, a mole, a rotating cutting head that chews forward through solid rock and lines the walls behind it. And for most of that mile and a half, it worked. Then it hit the bad ground. Deep inside the ridge, there was a zone where the rock was not really rock anymore. It was a wide band of crushed, decomposed material and swelling clay, sitting along old fault lines. The crews had names for the worst stretches. One they called Julie, another they called Kathy L. And in that zone, everything got harder. The boring machine grips the rock to push itself forward, but in soft clay, it had nothing to grip. The soft ground actually bent the tunnel off its line, and when they cut into it, water came in hard. Around 1,200 gallons a minute, flooding in through the wall of a tunnel being dug under a lake that was itself trying to drain. They pushed through it. The last 200 feet were too broken for the machine, so they finished by hand, drilling and blasting the final stretch. The tunnel went into service in May of 1985. Gravity took over. The barge pumps were shut down, and for the first time since the eruption, Spirit Lake had a way out that did not need a motor. They thought the hard part was over. It was just beginning, because that zone of bad rock, the Julie and Kathy L. ground, never stopped moving. The mountain was not done. Deep in the ridge, that soft, swelling rock kept squeezing in on the tunnel, slowly, patiently, year after year. And when they had bored through it, the crews had made one fateful decision. To save time in that broken ground, they had used lighter steel supports and, in places, stopped installing supports once the machine reached solid contact overhead. That left long stretches of sheared, weak rock with very little holding it. That rock started to close the tunnel back up. By the mid-1990s, it was bad enough to force major repairs. Then again, crews had to go back into the mountain, into a tunnel that is the only drain for a lake that wants to flood 3 towns and rebuild it from the inside. And here is the cruel part. Every time you close the tunnel to fix it, the lake starts rising again behind you. During one long repair closure, the lake climbed more than 30 feet while they worked. You are fixing the safety valve while the pressure it controls keeps building. By 2015, it happened again. Inspectors found a section where the tunnel floor had heaved upward and the walls had squeezed in, choking the flow below the level engineers considered safe. That triggered a repair contract of around $3 million. Crews back inside, excavating the swelling floor and jamming in heavy steel ribs to hold the mountain off. The running total of these repairs since 1985 climbed to roughly $7 million and counting. If you are getting the sense that this problem never actually ends, you are exactly right. And that is what makes the next part so unsettling. While all of this was happening inside the ridge, there was a second machine fighting the same mountain down in the valley. Because draining the lake solved one problem, but the eruption left another one behind. All that loose ash and rock in the upper Toutle Valley washes downstream every year, raising the riverbeds and choking the flood channels that protect those same towns. So in 1989, the Corps finished a giant earthen dam across the North Fork Toutle called the Sediment Retention Structure. 1,888 feet long, 184 feet tall, built for one job: to catch the mountain before it reaches the towns. For years, it caught most of the sediment coming down. But a sediment dam has a lifespan because it fills up. Its designers knew this. The dam was built to hold about 250 million cubic yards, and it has been filling ever since. A Corps spokesperson put it bluntly: the structure has gone from catching around 80% of the sediment passing through to letting around 80% pass. The valley floor behind it has risen by about 100 feet. In 2013, they raised the spillway 7 feet to buy more room, and it kept filling. Which brings us to right now, to 2026, because none of this is history. It is happening this year. In January of 2026, the Army Corps awarded a new contract worth $35.9 million to raise that sediment dam another 10 feet. Construction is set to start this summer and run into 2027. And that is only the near-term fix. Separately, the Forest Service has spent years studying what to do about the tunnel itself. The aging, squeezing, single point of failure holding back the lake. Their proposed plan carries a price tag around $265 million. Rehabilitate the old tunnel, bore a brand new pressurized tunnel as a backup, and permanently lower the lake by about 40 feet to give everyone a margin of safety the current setup does not have. Read that back. 46 years after the eruption, engineers are proposing to drill a second tunnel through the mountain because the first one is wearing out and there is no backup. Right now, that lake has exactly one drain. If it ever failed completely, the Forest Service estimates it would take 5 to 8 months for the lake to rise to the point of a catastrophic breakout. That sounds like a lot of time. But it also means the clock is always running, quietly, in the background, and somebody has to be watching it forever. We keep coming back to that word, forever. If you have made it this far, do us a favor and leave a comment telling us where you were the day the mountain blew, because a lot of you remember it, and then take 1 second to like and subscribe so the next person finds this story too. Here is what actually stays with us about all of this. When you think of Mount St. Helens, you think of that one morning, the ash column, the flattened forest, the 57 people who died. You think of it as an event, something that happened and ended. But the mountain never really stopped. It buried a fleet of machines that the ground is still handing back one truck at a time. It trapped a lake that has been trying to escape for 4.5 decades. And it forced a group of engineers into a fight that has no finish line, holding back billions of gallons of water with one tunnel, one dam, and a budget that gets renewed every few years because the alternative is 50,000 people underwater. The eruption lasted a few minutes. The cleanup has lasted a lifetime, and it is being handed to the next generation of engineers right now, in 2026, still unfinished. The machines that built America usually got a finish line, a ribbon cutting, a photograph, a plaque. This one does not get one. This machine just has to keep working, alone, in the dark, under a mountain, for as long as the water keeps rising. And the water is not going to stop. We checked. This is the machine holding back Mount St. Helens.